Over the last year, we've seen some serious updates to Minecraft, with dozens of new blocks, features, and fun injected back into the game. 1.13 added life to the oceans, and 1.14 promises to improve Minecraft as a whole. With this in mind, I thought it would be fun to share some ideas that I would also love to be in the game. Now, I've got 7 ideas to show you today. Yes, show you, because I have teamed up with Mr. Mackenstein to make a prototype of each of these ideas to attempt to visualize what they might look like in-game. Now, fair warning before we get started, we're using a lot of Minecraft trickery and magic to make this work, and it might not look the cleanest, but keep an open mind and try and see the idea for what it is. Some of these are more serious than others, and some are far-fetched dreams. But let's get started with my absolute favourite of them all. In the upcoming 1.14 update, there's a new weapon being added to the game, the Crossbow. It's an incredibly fun item to use. However, some people worry that this might leave the old school bow somewhat lagging behind in popularity. So I thought maybe it needs an extra purpose, one with many uses. I propose the Bow and Tether, a new item that allows you to move around with ease, but at a cost. First, here's how you make it. You take 3 existing items, the bow of course, a lead, and an arrow. Put them together in a crafting table, and you can create the Bow and Tether. If you haven't already guessed, this is essentially a grappling hook that allows you to fire it at a location and it pulls you towards the target. Real life physics clearly don't apply here, but when have they ever really in Minecraft? Now, before everyone takes this demonstration at face value, this isn't really how I see it working. This is just the data pack prototype that we made to demonstrate. I see it working more like this. You fire the bow into the air, and as the arrow travels, a lead very similar to the fishing rod follows it directly behind like this, allowing it more time to travel and give a better effect. Now, this is seriously fun to use. It makes traveling upwards or downwards or even side to side much more enjoyable, but it's actually also quite balanced. Every time you use one of these, I picture it consuming the arrow and the lead, and leads are fairly expensive to make. They cost 1 slime and 3 string. Also, this has a limited range, just like the lead itself, and if you miss, the arrow will fly off without you and you are left with just the bow, leaving you feeling a little bit silly. If you chase after it, you can of course go and pick up those items again. Now, if this was a real thing, imagine how fun it would be to get yourself out of holes, jump across ravines, or even save yourself from a crazy long fall. But that's not all it can be used for. If you use it on a mob, it will drag them towards you, allowing you to catch those pesky mobs that flee when you try and hunt them down, like the pigs. Or, alternatively, you could fish creatures out of the ocean that are physically swimming in the water, where previously you would have to jump in and chase them yourself to get some ink sacs. You might be able to just hook them in and take care of them yourself. And as you might have expected, you could also use this on players, which opens up a whole new level of PvP. As you can drag your opponents towards you, you can then whack out your sword and bop them on the head. But that also means that they can bop you on the head. Or if you're not into fighting at all, you can just save your accident-prone friend from instant death by dragging them out of a pool of lava, given that they actually survived that. As the elytra is a late game item and isn't good for those small jumps, the Bow and Tether could be an excellent way to prevent the arduous tasks of 1x1 towering when travelling around. And I know scaffolding is now a thing, but if you just need it for exploring, you know, you're just going from A to B and you don't want to leave a mess, it's kind of nice to be able to just drag yourself up those small little areas and keep it all clean. So anyway, that is the Bow and Tether that I wanted to show you. The next one is one that's more silly and not even a real feature, it's just a bit of fun. Now, as most of you know, you can take a pair of shears and right-click a snow golem to reveal its true form and a rather silly face. I personally do this to all my snow people, so I can see those gorgeous eyes. However, I thought it'd be really fun if each time you sheared off the oppressive pumpkin from the snow angels, it has a chance to be a different face. I have some examples here to show you. So we got our little slanty face guy, he's not very happy about it. Now we could do a lot of different things here, and I mean a lot of different. Imagine there'd be like 10 or 11 different emotions. We've got a very unimpressed snowman here. He looks you dead in the eyes and he's like, no, I don't appreciate that. Or you could go into the more happy zone, but he's more like, what are you doing? It could be funny. Every time you shear the pumpkin off, you get a different reaction from the snowman. It gives them more character. Even though it adds absolutely nothing to the game, it can just be a good laugh every single time, even if it is just a happy face. Now, this isn't actually the same as the default, and it just could have a carrot as a nose. There's so many different ones you could do, because individually, when people make snowmen, they make it their own way, and I kind of wanted that in Minecraft itself. Or it could be an unhappy snowman, and then you should feel ashamed of yourself. And yeah, then we should put the pumpkin back, but we can't put the pumpkin back. Anyway, that's enough of the snowman thing. Let's move on to another one. So this idea really isn't my idea at all. This is not a new concept. It's something people have been asking for a very long time, so much so that it already exists in Optifine, which is a mod that you can add into Minecraft. Well, basically, this is the idea of dynamic lighting. Now that means that when you hold a torch in your hand, it will emit light on its own, but only when it's in your hand and not just sitting in your inventory. Because this already exists, I can already showcase what it looks like. So this will allow you to see what you're doing while you're caving in Minecraft, but the great thing is, that's all it really does. It won't stop mobs from spawning, because mobs don't spawn in your immediate vicinity anyway. Which means caves won't be any safer or less scary. It means that you can see the blocks that you're mining. You'll still have to place torches down all over the caves if you don't want to get zombified. It also allows light sources that you throw on the floor to give off some light as well, which may help you find your items more easily if you did happen to lose the fight in the search for more diamonds. So building on from this concept on Optifine, I thought, why not take this a step further by introducing a new enchantment? What if you could enchant your helmet or another piece of armor with an emitting or an illumination enchantment? This would allow your armor, when you're wearing it, to glow, allowing you to have the same effect without holding a torch. You could even have different power levels. Emitting 1 could have a weak glow, which is barely noticeable. Emitting 2 could be slightly more powerful, while emitting 3 could have a torch-like power. I absolutely love this feature on Optifine, and with the lighting changes we've seen on Java recently, I really hope that there's an ability to get something like this implemented so that we can just see what we're doing when we're playing Minecraft at night. But that's enough technical talk. Let's discuss another fun idea, a new craftable item called the Chorus Pearl. If you haven't already figured out what this is by its hideous amalgamation of sprites, this is a combination of ender pearls and a relatively unused food item, the chorus fruit. When put together in the crafting table, I propose that it gives you a chorus pearl. The chorus pearl is the opposite of an ender pearl. If you throw it at something like a mob, it will teleport it somewhere random nearby. Now, this might seem rather useless at first glance, but imagine that you are being chased by a handful of mobs. Throwing a few of these could be the difference between life and respawning. There's also the possibilities with, how do I put this? Messing with your friends to no end. Imagine your friend is standing on the edge of a cliff and you just can't help yourself. Throw this and watch them panic. Or, if you feel nicer than that, you can always use it to save your friend when they, again, inevitably fall into a lava pool. And just like the bow and tether, this item could have some really serious PvP implications. While you throw your own ender pearl off into the distance to escape some combat, you use a chorus pearl on your enemy to buy you those precious seconds that it takes for that ender pearl to land. And you also leave your opponent looking rather confused as to where you've gone. So let's move on away from the chorus pearl and onto something else. As many of you know, I like to mess around with my fellow Minecraft players by building traps and creating little contraptions. What I'm about to propose is just an example of the type of block I'd like to see with this specific versatility. And that example is rotten wood. And rotten wood, just like in real life, is weaker and it will break if you stand on it for too long. Now I think something like this would work really well in the woodland mansion, as if you walk along a part of the corridor that is rotten, you may fall through and find an unpleasant surprise on the floor below. The obvious use for a block like this, and it doesn't necessarily have to be wood by the way, it could be some other block that breaks when you stand on it, is for trapping people. But obviously, if you just stand on the block, it takes too long to break to really surprise someone. You could just hop away without any problem whatsoever. It needs to be much quicker, which is why I also suggest for this block that it will also break if you trigger it with redstone. The stronger the redstone input, the faster it breaks, meaning if you power a group of rotten wood together, you can basically create an instantly vanishing floor. And it doesn't need to be a floor either. This kind of block has so many potential uses, particularly in adventure maps. Imagine a scenario where you're trapped in a room and you have to find your way out, and you press a button and it breaks one of the walls or even the ceiling above you. You can then progress through that wall. That kind of stuff is only currently accessible through command blocks and is not in survival Minecraft, which I think is a bit of a shame. I really hope that something like this is implemented into Minecraft one day. Alright, now let's move on to a mob. Not a new mob suggestion, but a particularly old one. Now, this suggestion is actually not very serious at all, because there are simply way too many issues with this concept for it to work, but I'll share it with you anyway just for fun. The idea is to take the very cute mob, the slime, and to give it an extra ability, to merge with its fellow blobs. Now, slimes actually colliding with each other is surprisingly a rare occurrence. I would have thought that they bumped into each other all the time, but they really don't. Anyway, if you force them into a small enough area where we can simulate what happens, as you can see, slimes of equal size will merge together to form the next size up. Now, if you get enough of these to merge together, eventually you'll get a slime boss, a new overworld threat. Now, obviously, slimes mostly spawn underground, so this, again, doesn't really work, but let's just entertain the idea for a second. Giant slimes could bounce around the world, destroying trees and crushing other mobs in its wake. I also thought this mob could have a unique property that if you tried to take care of it with arrows, they could simply bounce off and hit the player back again. We managed to make this happen with data packs, but these mobs are not actually ideal for fighting as their hitbox is a bit hit and miss. But if you do manage to fell one of these giant slimes in this hypothetical scenario, you might think that it would split into many more slimes, but I think a better option is for it to drop a totally unique item. Charged slime. Now, charged slime is another new block that I want to suggest, and this is actually more of a serious suggestion than the slime boss that I propose it comes from. We already have events that happen in the world when lightning strikes it, just like when a creeper is struck by lightning, it starts glowing and it will produce a very large explosion. You could have something special happen in the swamp biome if a slime is struck by lightning. Now, we've managed to make a prototype of this concept, and what it does is incredibly simple. The slime will repel the player if it touches it. For example, if I run at it from the side, it will push me back on contact. Or, if I jump on it, it will launch me in the air. Basically, this block acts as a slime block should, but because it's charged, it outputs more energy than you put in. It's a launch pad. You can already achieve this with pistons and normal slime, but something about this block feels like it could have a real use in many contraptions and adventure maps. Imagine if you put a bunch of these and created a room out of it where you're constantly bouncing inside. Now, perhaps that could be a little bit broken as the player would be stuck forever, but I still think that charged slime will have many uses if it was considered. Moving on to the last idea that I want to talk about today is another less than serious suggestion, but here we are anyway. As we know, 1.13 Minecraft introduced us to the very cool Conduit, a beacon-like structure underwater that allows us to breathe infinitely while we swim. I wondered if it would be possible to place one of these conduits outside of the water for a similar effect. I, not so seriously, propose the air conduit, which, when built in the same way as a normal conduit is, will give you the ability to swim in the air in a radius around it. Now, I wasn't exactly sure what this conduit would be made of, so it's made out of glowstone. But here's what it might look like. You can see Mackenstein swimming through the air and is able to build much more easily than scaffolding up to place things. Now, this item would be extra late game, for those truly dedicated to making Minecraft their home, but it also has its limitations, just as a conduit or beacon does. It has a limited range, and if you swim outside of that range, you will fall and, well, probably take enough fall damage to die. If you had the resources, you could place multiple air conduits on top of each other to create a funnel which you could swim up incredibly high with. It would make late game building in Minecraft so much easier, and I can think of a whole host of fun things that you could do with it, including mini games and all sorts of PvP fights that happen mid-air. It could be extra fun. So that's all that I have to show you today. These are all of my ideas that I've put together. Let's have a brief look through them again, just so that you can have a quick reminder, and tell me in the comments down below which one was your absolute favourite. We had the Bow and Tether, which drags you to places. We had the Charged Slime, which drops from the slime boss, or better yet, a lightning charged slime. We have the snowmen, that if you take off their pumpkin, they give you a unique face every single time. Well, maybe not every single time, but a large variety of faces. We had the rotten wood that if you stand on it, it will break long enough, or if you charge it with some redstone, it also breaks. And we also had the illumination enchantment, which goes hand in hand with the Optifine dynamic lighting. The chorus pearl, which when you throw it at something, it gets teleported somewhere random around it. And of course, finally, the air conduit, which, much like the conduit you put in the sea, allows you to swim and breathe infinitely and all that kind of stuff. So those are my ideas that I would love to see in game. Now, you guys know which ones I love the most: the illumination, the bow and tether, the chorus pearl, and the snowman, and then there's some not so serious ones thrown in there as well. Tell me what you thought of these ideas, and if you would also like to see them in Minecraft. Now, all of these have their own downfalls, and some of them don't work, but it's very, very fun to theorize nonetheless. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and a big thank you to Mr. Maxstein for... Without him, I wouldn't have been able to put this video together. He created the data packs necessary for me to be able to demonstrate these in some kind of prototype sort of way. We also did a video on his channel about his ideas for a few new block ideas. So, head over there, and there's a link in the description so that you can check it out. Thank you very much for watching, everyone, and goodbye!